What's going on, everybody? How y'all doing? This is Shabazz with the proper perspective, coming to you live on this YouTube channel on this good day. About to get it started tonight.
Shabazz break it down with the proper perspective. The proper perspective. So much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection, and whose mouth is mumbling, trick knowledge deceptive. Shabazz break it down with the proper perspective. So much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection, and whose mouth is mumbling, trick knowledge deceptive. Shabazz break it down with the proper perspective. Shabazz break it down with the proper perspective.
Peace to everybody out there tuning in. How y'all doing tonight? This is Shabazz with the proper perspective. We're trying to get it started tonight on controversial. That might be a little controversial. That might be a little controversial. I don't know. Got a little heated in me a little bit, so it ain't that controversial, but I'm gonna try to do something a little, try to do a little something, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I'm doing a reaction video tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Now, doing a reaction video to somebody that I do watch a little bit on the regular. So let me just say, I got respect for the brother. I'm not trying to do this, ain't a clapback so much. So this ain't a disrespect. I don't do YouTube beef, but I am gonna try to do what I do best. I'm gonna try to dissect something important from the prevailing narrative. I'm going to try to shed some light on what I think is, well, normally I say an overlooked angle, but I really can't even say it's an overlooked angle because for the most part, a lot of us are, we ain't with the shits and giggles no more. It's kind of like what I'm trying to say. Now, as I continue, you're going to know what I'm talking about. And I know there's been a lot of information flooding our timelines about protests, marches, and rallies and boycotting. I know y'all seen them. And a lot of us are participating, at least in the boycotts. I know we're participating in the boycotts. So let me just start out by saying, now I'm fully in support of the boycotts, physically and actively taking a part of it. I'm also theoretically fully in support of any action that we take as a group, as a nation, as Black Americans, even if we call ourselves foundational Black Americans. I'm in full support of anybody that thinks something has to happen. We need to stand our ground. We need to let the current administration know we're not going gently until that good night. For all you high school poetry students. However, I just got to say, and like I said, I know I'm not necessarily bringing something brand new to the table tonight because from what I've seen, most of us are like, yeah, but we gonna sit this one out. That's the prevailing message. And so I'm doing this touch base with you type of thing because there is a brother that I do respect and I like his channel, and he thinks we're missing the boat. But I just gotta say, not every step forward requires a march. Not every step forward requires a protest. We can still be considered actively resisting without showing up to the streets, without standing on sidewalks, wearing sneakers and holding signs. So let me just say, because you're going to hear this later, sitting out is not surrender per se. That's what I'm saying. Just because you sit out a protest, just because you say, I'm not going to really, I won't be there, doesn't mean that you're surrendering your fight, your power. Not at all. Now, I will say now, as the days go by, y'all know when the summer comes, things that's when we really get cracking anyhow. I'm not saying that that's what we're gonna do this year, but the summer's when it gets started. So when and if we do decide as a group that we're gonna march, I just hope we don't do it blindly. I hope we don't go blindly into that type of a battle format. But today, tonight, what am I talking about? I'm gonna dive into the good Reverend Corbett. His call for black folks to protest alongside those who, for a long time, we have called our allies. And I think one of the reasons that most of us are not joining these protests is because we realized for the most part now, depending on how radical you consider yourself, depending on how pro-black you consider yourself, you may have been saying, I knew this all along. But there are a lot of us who aren't necessarily suspicious of the allies. And so I really do believe Reverend Corbett is one who is not that suspicious of the allies. And so he's disheartened. He's concerned. And he's calling for us, black people, African descendants of the slave trade. He wants us to protest alongside those who, unfortunately, I gotta say it this way, those who've enabled our modern day oppression. So what we're gonna do tonight, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, black people, conscious folk, we're gonna journey together with discernment. That's what we do. Now, give me a moment, because I gotta pull up the brother's video. So as I pull up his video, we're gonna get started. I'm gonna play a couple of pieces, and we're gonna dissect this thing tonight. We're gonna dissect this thing tonight. Let me get this thing on over here and pull it on up, and let me see, where is my share screen button? And get this on up for you. Maximize that. You don't need to see me on the screen. What you need to see is this brother, so you can hear his commentary. And let me come on down. Let me come on down. Whoops.
A good question is, how do I get started trading? A better question is, how do I profit today? Well, I can tell you.
Can't stand it.
Well, the U.S. Supreme Court saved Donald Trump's ass.
Visibly.
So here we go. Now we're getting it started. Pull this thing on up to the right section. Now we go. Now we're situated, ladies and gentlemen. Full screen. So y'all see the brother. He said, why sitting out is surrender? That's the first clip we're gonna play. So here we go. Let's hear what now. I'm calling him the good reverend. Maybe a little in jest, but he is an official, bona fide, certified, legit attorney. This is a legal mind. So he's not just hooting and hollering about some religious ideology. He's skilled. He's knowledgeable. And I don't necessarily disagree with some of his points that he's going to be making tonight. Let me give a shout out to the people who have joined me tonight. Decoding History Podcast says, hey, yo, that's right. We tired of marching. Now, I sort of get the idea that the brother is coming from. I ain't taking no shots, but he is of the older generation. I mean, I'm not trying to say I'm young, so I'm old too. But I get the idea that the older generation, the civil rights generation, the integrationist generation, they really put a lot of emphasis in the idea and the power of marching. I'm not mad at them for that. I understand that. But I do think that he's missing the boat a little bit. And so, like I said, yeah, Decoding History Podcast. Y'all check that podcast out because you get some dope information from them. From her. But I like to digress anyhow. So what I'm saying about the brother, about the attorney Corbett, I may still call him Reverend a couple times, but let me shut up and play this section so you can hear what he's saying.
message is why sitting out is surrender. A response to the protest boycott logic. AMCA movement video.
Now, again, that's just a real super short clip. I got to make sure I don't get a strike on my channel. But what we really going to do, so like I said, he thinks that us sitting out is a problem. And so I wanted to, touch base and speak on it. And so I'm calling this the opening salvo, the first jab. Now, as the elders say, y'all know I got to hit you with a proverb. As the elders say, a bird will always use another bird's feathers to create its own nest. But whose nest are we feathering? Now, Attorney Corbett says disengagement weakens us. So I got to ask the question, like, according to whom do we come across as weak when we disengage? Because I'll tell you what is weak. The real sign of weakness is thinking we just got to be beside the folk that voted not only against our interests, but we got to be beside the folks that voted against their very own interests. That's weak-minded. So I'm sorry, Attorney Corbett, I have to disagree with you that just because we sit out the march does not mean we are weak. When our African ancestors found themselves in chains on the good ship Jesus, there was no solidarity with the crew members just because the crew members were at a lesser status than the ship's captain. Now, I don't know if y'all feel me when I say that. And I might be stepping on toes because I know how some people feel about the word. But it's a fact that, we came over here on the good ship Jesus. And so let me just reiterate, nobody on the good ship Jesus was forming solidarity circles with the deckhands. And I say that to say lesser oppression doesn't make you kin. Now, we are quite familiar with the skin folk ain't kinfolk. But it don't even have to come down to skin folk. Lesser oppression doesn't make you kin. Now, we've seen this with the working class, the blue collar man. Just another nice, cute label, mostly for white folk who are not rich. And a lot of times, for good reasons, they get thrown into the political pot with black folk. But they jump out that pot at their first opportunity. So lesser oppression doesn't make you kin. Every chance they get to jump away from us, they do it. There was no checking for class solidarity on the good ship Jesus. Yeah, the crew may have had hard lives too, but they weren't shackled. They still had opportunities to steer the ship. So again, what do I say? I don't have a problem with us sitting out. At least, okay, that's my personal feeling. I don't have a problem with us sitting out. That's my political position. Now, to be perfectly frank with you, I work as a photographer at some times. I'm not saying that to that's not like a bragging point. I'm saying if I was only interested in my own ability to make money, then I would be saying, yeah, y'all, let's go. Let's get out there and protest. Why? Because on the low, I get to take pictures and sell those photos. I get to do my photo photography and ship my documentation on off to various news sources and see if I can earn a couple of bucks. Nah, that ain't what I'm doing though. I ain't going out there for personal reasons and I ain't going out there for monetary reasons. I recognize that this ain't our fight. It really is not our fight. It feels like it's our fight. It may feel like we're supposed to be there. But when you start breaking it down and analyzing and thinking things through, look, the fight was on the day of the November election. That was the fight. So let me not digress and let me not belabor the point for so much, because I got another clip for you. And I want to pull this together. I should have been on the big screen for that. But let me see if I can pull this clip. Here we go. Where we at? I'm gonna get it right. Trust and believe. So now we're about to play this next clip. I want y'all to listen to what he's saying now.
Concerns me because when we give up public protests, we're relinquishing one of the most valuable and powerful weapons our ancestors used to challenge power. We're turning our backs on an indispensable tool that helped desegregate schools, end Jim Crow, secure voting rights, and bring police violence into the national spotlight. Protests have never been the whole strategy, but it's always been a necessary part of it. Now,
Okay, now let me come back to the big screen. Make sure I do this right on this next segment. There we go. How y'all doing? Again, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you hit the like button, share, and subscribe. Let me throw that on the screen as well, and then I'll get to my position on this issue. Like, share, and subscribe. YouTube.com/@theproperperspective. That's where you need to be. If you're tuning in anywhere else, I appreciate you for tuning in on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, but YouTube is the home for now. So you heard what the brother said. You heard what he said. Now, I will say this, interesting. Here's one of those points I made reference to earlier. I don't entirely disagree. Ain't no need of me fronting. I can agree with him on this. Protests in the past have worked. Protests in the past, I got to put the emphasis on that. Protests in the past have worked. It forced America to look. Matter of fact, it forced the whole world to pay attention, especially the way it was organized and by whom it was organized. Again, another one of those keys. Who organized the protests in the past and who was organizing the protests of this year? So let's not romanticize things. I know y'all heard this statement. Until the lion tells the story, the tale of the hunt glorifies the hunter. Am I right? So who was in charge back then and who is in charge right now? Who's telling the story about what is needed? Who's telling the story about the power of the protest today? Don't y'all think it very interesting that Black folk were not part of this most recent round of protesting and marching? And like what I've heard a lot of people saying is, you see, the police didn't show up with the riot gear. I see that. But here's what I haven't heard people say a lot about. Y'all realize it was on a Saturday, right? Now, when we protest, when Black folk protest, we take off work. We hit the streets in the middle of the work week. Why? Because we mean business when we protest. When we get pushed to the point where we feel we got to be in them streets, we don't wait till Saturday and Sunday, when all government operations are already off work, when most, I can't say businesses are off because businesses, they run 24/7, but businesses can't necessarily operate when there's a mass of people shutting down I-95 on a Tuesday afternoon. But they can survive a weekend when people are not on the highway. So I think it's very interesting that these most recent protests, not organized by Black folk, take place on the weekend. Yes, it may allow them to have more people show up. But who are you showing up for? Who are you really showing up for? Orangutan is in Florida, and you say, let's all march into DC. Now, granted, it was all over, but you get my point. So we're not here to just tell stories about past pain, which is where the power of the protest has been seen and it at its most effective. It's the past. We're here to write new outcomes. We are here to write new outcomes. We are the lions telling a new story. And I literally mean write them. Let me go off on a tangent for a bit. I usually try to stay away from religion, but I just got to say this. You know, just like in certain mindfulness circles, in certain new age mentality circles, they tell you that you are the author of your own life story. You are the author of your own fate, the captain of your own fate. And it kind of reminds me like the way Elijah Muhammad taught that we come together, we as in the 12 scientists who literally write history, our ancestors, our Black African ancestors. This mindfulness of we are in charge. You know, I know you've heard the phrase, we run this culture. The culture is us. They built, our ancestors I'm talking about. Our ancestors built. Our ancestors boycotted. Our ancestors broke the mold. They didn't just march. They did not just march. That's the whole point. All these people today are just marching. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be marching. They should. I'm not saying that marching is ineffective because it is effective. But you got to know when to march and when not to march. You got to know what you're marching for. They ain't marching for reparations. They ain't marching to end police brutality. They are marching because the orangutan man that they voted for is beginning to cramp their lifestyle. Yes, he's doing some things that hurt us too. But he's not going to stop that no matter how many of us hit them streets. Even if we shut down I-95, he's still going to get rid of DEI. And you got the whole argument as to whether or not we need DEI from both the Black and the white communities. So I'm just trying to say, again, protest is a tool, ladies and gentlemen, but it ain't the whole toolbox. Like I said, our ancestors didn't only march. Our predecessors didn't only march. Our forefathers and foremothers didn't only march. They organized co-ops. They built schools. They literally hit the streets and fed babies in the community. They ran defense patrols. They didn't just march. Protest is useful. It is a useful tactic. It was back then. It can be today. But protest is not the mission. Protest is not the goal. And I think that is a part of what Attorney Corbett is missing in his commentary. Now, this reminds me of a proverb from the Bambara people of Mali. And yes, we have descendancy in Mali. And shout out to Mali. Shout out to Niger. And shout out to Burkina Faso. Y'all should know why I'm giving those three particular Sahelian countries a shout out. But the Bambara of Mali, they have a proverb that goes, the path does not close for the one who knows where he goes. The path does not close for the one who knows where he goes. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. Yes, again, allow me to reiterate. Protest is one path, but it's not the only path. So choosing not to be seen at all. Choosing not to be seen shouting in the streets, not to be seen getting knocked upside the head by a baton, not to be seen getting trampled over by police in riot gear. That doesn't mean we lost. We ain't lose nothing. We saved lives, we saved injuries, we saved hospital bills. It means we know exactly where we're headed. We headed to the cookout, y'all. We headed to the DC cookout, the barbecue. We know where we are needed and we know where we do not need to be. Brother Reverend Attorney Corbett. And sometimes, let me just say this before I move on. And sometimes the strongest move ain't on the street. What they say, KRS One said, real bad boys move in silence. It's what you build behind closed doors. Choosing not to march isn't surrender. Choosing not to march is actually reallocating energy, reallocating resources. We are the resource. This energy that is needed, no doubt, but it's needed to shape power in our own communities, whether Uncle Sam is working for us or against us. And that's almost an oxymoronic statement because Uncle Sam is rarely working for us. But we don't need to expel our energy just for the sake of expelling it. We need to use our energy to shape the power within our own communities. That ain't a march, ladies and gentlemen. That ain't a march, brothers and sisters. But okay, let me bring it down a little. Because I got another clip for you anyhow. But before I jump to my next clip, let me give a shout out to Novelty Queens for jumping in and joining in. What's going on, Novelty Queens? Appreciate your presence, appreciate your commentary. So let me jump on over. Let me let y'all know. Let me share this next clip. Let me see. Gotta get it right. Something always gotta go wrong. Let me see. Y'all know technology be bugging. So I may have to shut this thing down and open it up again. Here we go. All right. So let me get this next little clip for you. Pull this on up. Where we go? Here we go. All right. Here it comes. Minimize, maximize, turn the volume on up. Check this out and listen to what the brother's saying. Again, I'm not clapback. I'm not doing clapback for real, for real. This ain't disrespect, I guess what I'm saying.
Is the same. We're not in formation. Our absence, no matter the reason, weakens our impact, weakens our voices. A fractured presence in moments of national protest sends Trump and MAGA the message that we're either afraid, indifferent, or complicit with his authoritarian agenda. And make no doubt about it, this is about resisting authoritarianism. Third, the move.
So let me pause that. Y'all heard that. You heard what he said. Back on the big screen. So in this last clip, Attorney Corbett warns that the black absence makes black people look afraid, makes us look complicit. Now, let me regain my composure. He who learns teaches. Y'all heard that, right? He who learns teaches. She who learns teaches. They who learn teach. For all, anybody tripping off the pronouns, I ain't that. That's not me, but I'll throw them out there for you. So, but let me ask you this. What exactly are they learning when our so-called teaching is merely us performing our pain on their cue, performing our pain at their beck and call. What is going to be learned by our presence? All they ever learn is that our value lies in showing up and bleeding out for the cause. And then, as far as they're concerned, we can vanish into the night. We can vanish into the jail cells that they set up when they know we come into the protest. They get all the video footage, they get all the camera shots. Then we go to jail, and then we got to call our families, and they off to the next spot. They back in their homes. Them white picket fences. Nah, so what are we supposed to be teaching them? That ain't teaching. That's trauma theater. Our presence doesn't make us look weak. Our presence is only of value because they get to learn something. And if we choose silence, nah, dude, nah, my brother, that ain't weak. That ain't fear. We gonna withhold. We holding on to our dignity. How about that? Teaching. Let me say it this way. When they are involved, teaching them, even being in an alliance with them to sometimes, is more of a burden on Black people. It's something we are just expected to do. We're expected to carry the burden, especially in front of our performative allies. And you think not marching means we're afraid. Nah. What's scary, I'll tell you what's afraid. I'll tell you what the fear is. What's scary is believing that proximity to white liberals is power. Proximity to white liberals is liberation. We can sit out this new movement of white protest. Doesn't mean we're afraid. It doesn't even mean that we're sending a message to orangutan that he's on the right track. First and foremost, orangutan ain't listening to us. He ain't listening for us. He ain't checking in on us. He don't know whether we at the protest or not. And as a matter of fact, most of the news agencies didn't even try to cover it. Why? You tell me why. But these white liberals that Brother Corbett wants us to make sure that we always show up for the protests when they show up. These are the same folks who helped usher in 2025's anti-DEI rollback. Don't tell me I'm wrong about that, because some of the strongest Democrats helped vote for it. That ain't solidarity. That's a photo op. Nah, we ain't got the political paparazzi on the agenda this year. Now, I probably shouldn't go there. I'm not gonna go there, but for so much. I'll just let me fall upon the sword of my ancestral wisdom. As a matter of fact, because there's a proverb from our ancestors of the Akon culture or the Akan culture. Sometimes that hard A get out my mouth really too quick. It's Akan, ladies and gentlemen, not Akon. Akon is a hip hop artist. But the Akan culture offers us this nugget of wisdom. Even silence is speech. So the good brother, the good reverend, the good attorney, keep this in mind. Even silence is speech. So this affirms that choosing not to show up is not in any way, shape, form, or fashion cowardice. We are intentionally standing our ground. Why should we lend our presence to allies who helped burn the bridge in the first place? Now I'm going to say it again. Even silence is speech. And we giving hellified speeches these days. How y'all feel about that? How y'all feel about that? So I'm going to go on because I got a couple more clips for you. Let me find my next little clip. So the brother goes on to say, let me get, here we go.
My work is easy because I use ClickUp. Here's how I keep track of all my tasks.
Let me go on to say, yeah, let me stop sharing the screen so I can get this done properly. Here we go again. Okay, here we go. Pull this on up and get this on the screen the way it's supposed to be. And turn up that volume. Make sure the volume is up. There you go. All right. So listen to the brother. The statement, he says, this statement is our official and final position. I got you.
And I've heard is that protests don't work because we've protested for years and nothing has changed. That's simply false. The 2020 protests led to policy reforms in cities across the country. Protests that were led by BLM, Black Lives Matter. Police departments were restructured, budgets were reallocated, George Floyd's killers were arrested, prosecuted, and convicted because of public pressure, because of marching and protesting. No protest guarantees change, but the absence of protest guarantees that nothing changes. You see, we as Africans.
Okay, so I'm going to pause it again. Bring myself back to the big screen. Now, again, I'm not going to necessarily, like I said, this ain't clapback. This ain't YouTube beef material. He makes some good points. But when the roots are deep, there is no reason to fear the wind. When the roots are deep, there is no reason to fear the wind. I don't know what this means. What y'all talking about, bruh? You always hitting us with these weird ass, these proverbs. What you doing? Well, let me just say this. What good is the wind if the roots are starved? After 2020, yeah, we got some policy changes. I'm not saying we didn't. The George Floyd protests, we got some things. But upon critical analysis, when we do a deep dive into what we got, I'm sorry to say this, and a lot of people, a lot of y'all might disagree with me, but a lot of what we got was performative. A lot of what we got was hollow. We didn't get reparations. We didn't even get the study approved for reparations, let alone the actual execution of it. We got a lot of performative statements and we got some hollow reforms. For instance, yes, we got some new tools to help fight police brutality. But most of those tools, like, yeah, they agreed to wear body cam. But they have the ability to turn off the body cam before they get out the car. They have the ability to turn off the body cam right after they swing. So how strong is that reform? That's a hollow reform at best. It's a performative. Now, y'all know we had the performative statements when all those white congressmen stood up, or representatives stood up wearing, or took a knee, I should say, wearing kente cloth. So, okay, fine. Even if you disagree with me and you say, no, the reforms we got, they weren't hollow. We got more than that. Okay, I'll give you that. You ain't got to agree with me on whether or not they were strong reforms. I won't belabor that point. I got one better for you, though. All of those reforms were undone by Trump's ink pen. So you can call them strong or you can call them hollow. But what you gotta call them is gone. Let me say that a different way. You can call them hollow or you can call them strong, but one way or another, my brother, they all gone. Now, even if we don't agree that the reforms were hollow, even if we ain't gonna agree that they were performative, they ain't here no more. We marched until our throats bled. We marched until our feet were tired. And what we got now. So I'm here to tell you, and maybe I'm preaching to the choir, but I'm here to say disengagement is not cowardice. No, on the contrary. On the other hand, disengagement is the manifestation and representation of discernment. We must discern where our labor is needed. We must discern where our labor is exploited. And when we recognize, when we realize, when we understand the error of our ways, we must do different. Now, let me see. Shout out to Linwood for joining the stream, the podcast. Sometimes I get tongue tied because I'm like, I don't know if I should be calling this a podcast or not. I had somebody hit me up and was like, it ain't really a podcast. If they can see you, it ain't a podcast. Look, okay. Thank you for joining my YouTube stream. Like, share, and subscribe, ladies and gentlemen. YouTube.com/@theproperperspective. I put the emphasis on the @ because you got to really put the @ sign in there. If you don't put the @ sign in there, you're not going to find me. So like, share, and subscribe. Now, let me pull up this next clip. And like I said, I may be a little animated. I may be a little hype, but I'm not disrespectful. And I'm not disrespecting the brother, and I'm not trying to disrespect him. Or at least that's not the intent. Let me see. Here we go. So let me pull up this next piece for you. And let's get this started. Listen up to what he's saying now.
That should concern every serious organizer. The hands-off protests proved that it could mobilize without significant Black participation. That doesn't reflect our power. Actually, it reflects our marginalization. Disengagement, when it isolates us, is not strategic. Again, it's surrender. It gives away leverage. It lets others decide outcomes while we watch from the sideline. Black power only matters when it shows up early, loud, and united. So here's the truth. We stand to lose the most.
Now, so y'all heard my brother. Y'all heard that, right? Y'all heard that, right? Now, this one, I kind of got a little heated off of this one now. So in this clip, Reverend Corbett, Attorney Corbett, is actually placing the blame on Black people or Black voters for disengagement. Yes, he's urging us to join or rejoin, commit ourselves to coming back to the protests. And he cautions us that if we don't join these protests, we are actually losing power. Now, excuse me for a moment while I brush off this guilt trip, this grand finale guilt trip of his. And let me just remind you, even the best cooking pot won't produce food, right? We've been the pot. We have been the pot. We have been the fire. We have been the seasoning, and we are still hungry. So, no, Brother Corbett, we're not marching just to make the meal easier for those who keep spilling the meal and wasting it. I mean, I can't believe that Corbett is blaming us for disengagement. Nowhere in this video, granted, I didn't play the whole video. That would be against the whole YouTube environment. But I challenge you to prove me wrong about this one particular point. Nowhere in this video Does he blame the 65% of white men who voted for Trump? Or the 55% of the white women, or the 53% of Hispanic, so on and so forth. We carried, black people, we carried the 2020 election. We did all the heavy lifting in 2024. You know something? It's their turn to cook. It's their turn to get out there, hit them streets, and make a difference. Strategic absence is resistance. But yet we are always the ones expected to march, expected to march first, expected to bleed, expected to explain, to fix. You know, Crispus Attucks was the first person to die in the American Revolution. That's what they want. They want us to die on the hill first. Not no more. We're done playing cleanup. We're done sacrificing our own lives so that the rest of them can walk off in the sunlight. You know, we exist in this country. We are surrounded by enemies. Kind of like, you know, well, I'll tell you what. Because there's if you know your African history, if you know your African culture, or if you know your African descendancy, there's an ethnicity called the Susu from Guinea. And yes, some of us descend from the Guinea. And they would say even the hippopotamus has enemies in the water. Now, why do I say this? Because the hippopotamus is known to be one of the strongest, most fiercest animals in the water. In the river, I should say. You could be the strongest thing in the river. And this wisdom even goes back to ancient Kemet. The hippopotamus was that thing. The same way we say the lion is the king of the jungle, and he don't even live in a jungle. But that's the phrase. Back then, they would say the hippopotamus is the one to look out for. But even in the water, even being the king of the river, he was always under attack. He was always under pressure. He was always under threat. So no, strategic absence is not betrayal. We're not betraying the movement. We're not betraying the cause. We're not betraying ourselves. We're not letting down Black power. We're not even losing Black power. Black power is in the dollar, not the protest. As long as we continue to participate in the economic boycotts, we are showing up where we need to be. Not showing up in the streets to give somebody an opportunity to billy club us is protection and protest, all wrapped up in one. We are not America's janitors. We are not America's conscience. Now, if you want to give us a label, I don't even like to claim America in and of itself, but if you want to give us a label, you can call us America's prophets. But guess what? Prophets don't beg for seats at tables built on their own bones. Prophets point in the right direction, and then they get out the way and let the people do the work. So in that respect, yeah, we are America's prophets. America got to do the work. We've been the hippo in the water too long. Very strong, but surrounded and still hunted. And we ain't playing that game no more. At least not right now at the beginning stages of 2025. Like I said, it's early in the year. Some other things may come down the pike. You can tell they're trying to provoke us to get into them streets. When they do things like, we're going to let the South Africans come over here, the white ones, and help them build a new community in America. That's provocation. When they do things like, let's let the guy, what's his name? Derek Chauvin, let's let him out of jail. Technically, he shouldn't even still be somebody in jail should have. I know I shouldn't say it. I'm not gonna say it. But that's nothing but provocation. They want us in these streets. I wonder why they want us in them streets so bad. But I digress. Now, I will say, because I got a few closing thoughts. I'm not, I don't try to keep you too long. I will say there is something that the good brother says that I 100% agree with. So let me pull that up. It's coming up right now. So let me back on out of the screen, because you're gonna hear it in a minute. Check this out.
To our friends in Australia.
Ah, what a joke. What a joke, ladies and gentlemen. So let me stop sharing so I can get that off the screen. Let me get this. Here we go. So I'm gonna pull this back up, because this is that section where I do agree with the brother. So here we go. Thank you for your patience. YouTube.com/@theproperperspective. Like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell and you get the notifications. Turn them on. Now let me share my screen. Hit the full screen. Go back to the share. Turn on the microphone. So check this out. Listen to what he said, because this is the one point I 100% agree with him with. He says,
Americans, Trump's agenda is anti-black, and we're not making our voices heard on a national level today. If Trump and the MAGA moves, Trump's agenda is anti-black. 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 And we're not.
Y'all heard that, right? Do I need to play it again? I 100% agree with him on this.
African Americans, Trump's agenda is anti-black. Trump's agenda is anti-black.
Absolutely 100% agree that Trump's agenda is anti-black. You won't get no pushback from me on that. But let me say this. In closing, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, in closing, like I said, on this, the Reverend and I are of one mind. Trump's agenda is anti-black by design, not by accident. Now, where we differ is on our response. I ain't marching. I'm gonna tell you that right now. I ain't marching. Now, if I look up and see all my brothers and sisters are out there marching, I will probably could change my mind. But I'm not marching because I'm confused. It's not because I'm confused. I'm not marching because I'm clear. I know what's at stake. I know what's not at stake. I know that, for instance, I got elderly in my family and they need their Social Security. Whether I show up or not, as long as all those good boomer generation white folks show up the way they showing up, there's a chance he ain't gonna mess with Social Security. If we show up, there's a greater chance that he will mess with Social Security. If he was to look up and realize how many black people got Social Security, that might give him another arrow to shoot. Yes, his policies target us, from education to DEI to environmental justice. But I don't believe showing up in the streets is the only way to show resistance. I don't even believe it's the right way to show up to show resistance. I choose silence when the microphone is rigged. Now, I've been involved with public speaking to some extent, and I've had to make do with rigged mics. So I know what I'm talking about. So I choose silence when the mic is rigged, and I choose movement when the ground is stable, when the ground is mine. Now, as far as the good brother, Reverend Attorney Corbett is concerned, I'll just say this: Trump's policies indeed target us. We don't disagree on the threat. We don't disagree on the problem, my good brother. We disagree on the choreography. While some march, I invest. Now that's a shout. That's a shout out. All this mess that he doing. You know, y'all saw the past couple of days. There's a phrase that stays in my mind, especially when orangutan is on deck. The more problems that he causes, the more money there is to be made on the stock market. Now, that may sound antithetical to you, but they even caught either one of his assistants or one of his sons saying something about all of the stock market crash and stuff. They caught him on a hot mic or something saying, buy the dip. They do this stuff on purpose. They do it on purpose. So all of the rigmarole of the stock market falling and crashing, and it's worse than it was even when Biden was in office. The savvy investor knows those are the days to buy. Because as soon as it hits whatever bottom that they've already designed and determined, they're going to pull the strings and watch it rise again like a phoenix. So while some shout, while some hold signs, I redirect my dollars. You should redirect your dollars and prepare your children's future away from this burning house. Martin Luther King told you. Now, your teachers may not have told you, your preachers may not have told you, but Martin Luther King told you we're integrating into a burning house. Yes, Trump's legacy is a direct assault on Black livelihood. But I refuse to give it even more visibility by reenacting my own grief on command of the people who will take advantage of it. Now, Brother Corbett and I, we agree on the diagnosis. We just carry out our medicine differently. Some carry bullhorns. I carry strategy. I carry budgets. And guess what, y'all? I carry a passport and a visa. What I won't do is be guilted back into symbolic resistance. If marching changed the math, we wouldn't still be counting up the losts and the costs and the cost of what's been lost. If marching made a difference, orangutan wouldn't have walked into that office and wrote away all of the policy reforms that we gained. Yes, protest matters, but so does where we pour our power. So does where we put our focus. Let's reject false binaries. Let us stay rooted. Let us stay discerning. And always, y'all know what I'm about to say, let us keep the proper perspective. That's my show, ladies and gentlemen. That's my show, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm going to stop the share just to start it again. I thank you for tuning in. I thank you for listening. I thank you for showing up. Shout out to everyone that did. Shout out to Linwood, Novelty Queens, Decoding History for tuning in. And I'm just going to get ready to roll on out by sharing my screen if y'all feel me, if you hear me, share this podcast, share this YouTube video, share this discussion with somebody you know or you think would appreciate it. If you want to disagree with me, if you want to challenge me, I get a whole lot of white trolls on my pages. I ain't mad. I appreciate anybody that listens. But check out the comments on the pages when you get a chance. And with that, ladies and gentlemen,
Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. So much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection, and whose mouth is mumbling, trick knowledge deceptive. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. So much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection, and whose mouth is mumbling, trick knowledge deceptive. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. Break it down with the proper perspective.